Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well. It's time for our Saturday briefing, and I feel like I got an excellent lesson coming up, and I'll tell you about it in just a moment. But let me visit with you. It's been a great week. Last week, when I was recording my briefing with you, we were getting ready to head over to Butte, Montana. Had a great weekend there. Give a shout out to Pastor Tim Mosslander and Julie. Had a great weekend with them. They took me to a little mom and pop steakhouse there in Butte, and one of the best steaks I've ever had in my life. And so I'm going to put Pastor Tim on my Christmas card list just for that steak. But it was great spending time there at the Abundant Life Church. Wonderful people. It's a great church there. So Pastor Tim, thank you for your gift of hospitality. And it was just a great weekend. Then we slid down and met a couple of our pastors in Livingston, Montana. Beautiful little town. We have a church there. And so I met Brother Parrott and Brother Durstein and their wives, and just catching up with a couple of my pastors on the road. And then we stayed in Miles City, and then Monday drove on in. I've had a great week this week. Got a dear brother and friend, Pastor Frank McBride, who's with me today. He'll be leaving out to go to Rapid City here in a little bit, and he's going to preach for me down there. Excuse me. And during this holding period till our new pastor gets there. And so we took him over to Teddy Roosevelt National Park yesterday. Never get tired of that beautiful place, and a little cold, but not near as cold as it has been. And so we just wrapped up, and just to go out and be in a place where literally there is no sound of civilization. It's just the wind and the sound of silence. It's just, it's incredible. It's restorative to the soul. So one of the great privileges of living here in the beautiful, great NCR. And then had a busy morning this morning, met with Brother Bishop Roberts there in International Praise in Columbia, South Carolina, working on the Montana camp meeting, guys. And it's going to be a fabulous camp meeting. It really is. And working with him, then I had we had MIP. It's going on right now with Brother Alan Hathaway, doing a great job with that. And we have one candidate this year, Michaela Grubb, and she's knocking it out of the park. So I'm so proud of her. Enjoyed that. And now I'm going to jump into this Saturday briefing, recording it, and then get packed up, and we'll be heading over to Billings to be with the Danas tomorrow at the meeting place. And we organized that church right in the middle of COVID, and I've never been there. Couldn't get there. We were locked down, but we went ahead, and Pastor wanted to organize. He wasn't going to let that stop him, and so they're doing great. And so I'm looking forward, Sanja and I, looking forward to being at the meeting place in Billings tomorrow. And then we'll turn around, drive, have lunch with the Danas tomorrow, and then drive back and be back here tomorrow night. We'll be in the office on Monday, and then guys and gals, don't shoot me, but Sanja and I are going to get on a plane on Tuesday morning early, and we're going to fly to Florida and spend the week, the rest of the week. That's the plan, at least. Spend the rest of the week there, and we're going to be a part of a leadership conference. It's the top 200 churches in the Church of God. And I'm believing the way we're doing, and the sharp guys we've got up here and sharp gals we've got up here, one day we're going to have some of our churches in that top 200. But I'll go there and to be a part of that, and get some training myself, stay on the cutting edge. And then Sanja and I are going to weave in a little personal time at the end, and we'll be flying back on the weekend and be back in the office next Monday. So hopefully the next recording, I'll be in warmer, sunnier climates. I may even have a red face with a little sun. Who knows? So it's always something going on here in the great NCR. And proud of you guys. I've talked to many of you this week, and things are going well from all accounts. And so I give you great kudos and honor you highly. Well, we visited a few moments here, and we have some important dates and things like that will be in the email to our pastors and our ministers. And I won't talk about a lot of that because this goes out to a lot of our friends and donors and supporters. And so we won't take up your time with that. But guys, Make sure you check the email there, and I'll have those dates for you. But I want to jump right into my lesson today, and I want to talk to you about transitioning to another place of ministry. Now, let me give these qualifications. I'm not wanting any of you to move. Please understand that. And so that's not what's behind this. But on the other hand, I guess it's been on my mind more after I left the pastorate and I went to Malden, and the overseer there is working on 2 or 3 moves almost all the time. And I've observed this over the years anyway, having grown up in the ministry, and now being an administrative bishop myself, it surprisingly, it seems like most of the time that I have been here, I have been working either working toward it or in the middle of a pastoral transition. So it is a part of life. It's a part of my life as an administrative bishop. But somewhere along the line, it's going to be a part of your life. And I have seen so many times, it makes me sad when I think of guys who are so passive about their life and their ministry and their career. And they're very passive, and they're not intentional. And so I'm not wanting you to move, but you are going to move eventually. You're going to transition. And I want you to be as intentional about it and make it as positive a moment in your life as possible. And so I want to talk to us maybe over the next 5 weeks, and I may break it up with a little, I will say comic relief, but not necessarily comic relief, but this is important stuff, and I may work in some other things as well. But over the next few weeks, I want to talk about how to transition well to another area of ministry. And so, again, the qualifier here is I'm not encouraging you to move, but there will come a time that you move. And so I want to share with you a few thoughts on that. Here's my underlying theology for this. All right. Moving is, being in the ministry, moving is a part of being in the ministry. It's a part of the expectation. I want to remind us all, come follow me is some of the first words that came out of Jesus' mouth when he was speaking to his ministers, to his soon-to-be apostles. And I want to remind all of us, we are called to a person first and foremost. And he is on the move. He has got plans all over this world. And we are called to a person, not a place. And I know we say that, but I can't tell you the shock. Even though I felt like I was doing the right thing and I was following the Lord, when it came time, my last pastorate in particular, I had been there for so many years and saw myself retiring there. But when God began to move upon our hearts, Sanjay, not my heart, and I knew that God was getting us ready for a transition, and it began to dawn on me, this is not my church. These are not my people. They're God's people, and it's God's church, and he has a plan that is far bigger than my little plans and my little ability. And so I want to remind all of us that we are called to a person, not a place. We will be at a place for that person, the Lord Jesus Christ. But there will come a time when he'll say, come follow me. Then the second underpinning of 3 prongs here of my theology of moving, the second underpinning is that the Great Commission is a go mission. And I want to remind maybe a brief word to the members here. Don't be hypocritical when it comes to your pastor. How many of us in any other career, there is a upward track, and we go and we move and we get promoted, and there's this upward track in our lives, and we should expect and desire that for our pastor. Your pastor, while he's there, he should earn every paycheck. He should give you his best. He should serve you well as a servant of Jesus Christ. And he should do his they should do their very best by you. But the goal is that you want a pastor that others won't. You want a pastor that is promotable, marketable, Those are the kind of pastors, while they're there, they're going to grow your church and leave indelible footprints, positive footprints that are going to pay dividends for you in years to come. But when we get selfish and we want to hold on to our pastor, what we end up doing is slowly strangling the vision, the joy, and the benefits of why they're even there in the first place. And so invest in your pastor and hope that he stays there as long as God wants him to, but not a day longer. And so I just want to remind us, ministers and members, that the Great Commission is a go mission. And God in particular calls certain people into vocational ministry that will be on the go. They'll come through your town for a while, but they will be on the go. And then I want to remind all of us that the third underpinning of my theology about why we should always be thinking about transitioning to the next assignment is the whole idea of being stewards. We are stewards. Again, it's not our church. It's not our ministry. We are ministers in the kingdom. It's God's ministry. It's God's church. It's God's people. And we are stewards that have been entrusted temporarily. You know the passage, Matthew 25. Luke talks about it as well. But after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. That's that stewardship mindset. There will come a time, pastor or minister, there will come a time when you have completed your current assignment. And if you've done it well, you will be given even more responsibility. There's nothing wrong with you wanting a promotion. You know, I've heard people cynically say, why is it that any time that a preacher leaves, it's always to go to a bigger church or make a larger salary? Why don't they go to a smaller church? Well, you don't do that in any other profession. Good stewards are worthy of their hire. A good steward that has done a good job, God's going to promote them, and that includes his ministers. And so I want to remind us all that we are stewards. And now I want to highlight one other thing about this. Remember the unfaithful steward? Fear is going to keep you where you're at or motivate you to get you to the next place. Fear that I'm not good enough. I've got to hold on to this. This is the best I can do, and I don't want to lose what I got. That will keep you right there because you're afraid to get out of the boat and to go for it. Or that fear, the awesome fear of being called into the ministry, vocationally into the ministry. That fear is, I don't want to face my Lord and find out I could have been a 10-talent man if I'd just had the courage. And so that fear would drive you to leverage your life to the fullest, to be all you can be for God. And so remember, you're called to a person, not a place. The Great Commission for those in full-time, especially those in full-time vocational ministry, the Great Commission is a go commission. You will go. You will spend a life of going. And maybe I should speak to the spouse for just a moment. But if you marry a preacher, you're a part of that go. And it's just a price. It's a joyful price, but sometimes it's a burdensome price. But it's a part of the price. The Great Commission is a go commission for those in vocational ministry. And then it is a stewardship. Okay? It's not an ownership. We are temporary stewards that have been entrusted with a portion of God's plan for the world. So, having said all that, there's 5 reasons why you should leave, transition from where you're at to another area of ministry. All right, let me enjoy a sip of coffee here. 5 reasons. Number 1, let's see if I can remember them. I've given versions of this talk over the years as I've talked to ministers. Number 1, you die. Number 2, you retire. Number 3, unfortunately, it's possible to disqualify yourself through a moral failure. Heaven forbid that happens to any of us, but it does happen. Number 4, you leave because your vision, you love the church, you love the people, but your vision for your life and ministry is larger than your church, where you're at right now. Or number 5, there comes a stage of your life where the vision of the church becomes larger than you. They love you, but you know that if you stay there, you continue to stay there, you're going to hold back what God wants to do. And so you leave, at least for these 5 reasons. You die, you retire, you disqualify yourself, your vision, you grow bigger than your church can grow, or your church grows bigger than you can grow, or that you're willing to grow at a particular stage of your life. So those are the 5 reasons. And I want to talk about them. I want you to be intentional and know up front. Don't just drift along and one day you wake up and your ministry's almost over and you haven't really done it on purpose. You're just a good guy, a good gal that got up every day, answered the phone, beat the halls of the hospitals and highways and byways, visiting, ministering to people's needs, and you meant well, but there was no intentionality. And now life has gotten away from you, and you're not prepared. And so we'll talk about all 5 of these, but today I want to talk about dying to leave. I want to talk about the first one. What if God's exit plan for you is for you to die doing what you're doing right now? It does happen more than you realize. In the book Bright Days, Dark Nights, it's a devotional book by Elizabeth Ruth Skoglund. I can't pronounce her last name, but it was a great book, and it's about, she takes the life of Charles Haddon Spurgeon, and I really enjoyed it. I'd recommend the book, especially to we preachers. But she writes, death, therefore, is the one transition in this life on earth that requires constant preparation. She goes on, Spurgeon gives examples from the lives of the great preachers Wesley and Whitefield. Of Wesley, he wrote, and I quote Spurgeon now, "Let us imitate Mr. Wesley's calm anticipation of his end. A lady once asked Mr. Wesley, suppose that you knew you were to die at 12 o'clock tomorrow night. How would you spend the intervening time? How, madam? He replied. Why, just as I intend to spend it now. I should preach this evening at Gloucester and again at 5 tomorrow morning. Can you believe that, preaching at 5 o'clock in the morning? He said, but again at 5 o'clock in the morning, and after that I shall ride over to Tewkesbury, preach in the afternoon, and meet the society in the evening. I should then repair to friend Martin's house, who expects to entertain me, converse and pray with the family as usual, retire to my room at 10 o'clock and commend myself to my Heavenly Father, lie down to rest and wake up in glory." Now, that's a guy that has mapped it out, and he's prepared to end his ministry and exit his ministry in death. This does happen, and it happens more often than you think. My last pastorate, the reason I went there is the pastor died in harness, as they say. He died, Brother Morgan, Doug Morgan, a great man of God, a leader and very influential man in his day. And he died while pastoring the Great Fork Mill Church of God. And that's why I went there. And unfortunately, in talking to some of my fellow administrative bishops, there's been a number of our pastors that have died during this COVID ordeal that we're going through. It does happen. And so, questions to consider. What if the reason you leave your current assignment is that you die? Let's think about that for a minute and be intentional about it. So the first question, I got a few questions I want to ask you to get you thinking. First of all, is your family provided for? If you die this week, if this is the exit plan, when you exit, will your family be provided for? Now, this is in your notes. I'm going to give most of this in notes because I really want this to get in our mind. But here's a vital key. Surviving today on the income you are making is not the goal. The goal is to make sure your family could survive and thrive without you. 1 Timothy 5:8. take this to heart for yourself. We think about others, but Paul said to Timothy, if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. And guys and gals, it's almost like living in an abusive situation. It becomes normal for us. And it's almost like in the ministry, if we're not careful, it will become a noble thing to just sit there and live and scrimp by and just barely get by. Our members will become, there's many people that expect that. They expect the preacher to be poor. And preachers expect to be poor. Just to scrimp by and get by. And there are scarred preachers' kids, grown preachers' kids to this day that feel a resentment toward the church because their parents were willing to allow others to put them in a little box that you need to just trust God and just live on the little bit that God's given you. And there's nothing wrong with that. Please don't misunderstand me. But many ministers go by the mantra, God can be trusted to provide for us. Well, he can. But God is trusting you to provide for your family. And I want you to feel free to take care of your family so that if you die, your wife, if you still have children, your wife and your children have a place to go to. I'll never forget walking to that parsonage at Fort Mill and Sister Morgan still there. It was during all this time and her life had been turned upside down. And it was not because of her, but it was just awkward. But Brother Morgan she had a place to go. There had been provisions made. I want you to make sure it's okay for you to make it a high priority that I want to make sure my family can not only survive, but thrive. If God's exit plan for me is dying in harness. So some things to consider. All right, get a part-time job if you need to. You say, well, Bishop, I'm getting by. I'm not asking, are you getting by? I'm asking you, are you teeing it up for your family to survive and thrive if you die next week or if you die next year? So it's okay to get a part-time job, not because you need it to buy groceries, but you need it to make sure your family can buy groceries if you're not there. So get a part-time job to get your house, if that's what it requires to get your house in order. Better yet, without compromising your calling, seek out ways to have multiple streams of income. In this age, especially web-based businesses, Brother Jeffrey Nyatuka there at Grand Forks, he's shared this publicly, so I don't think I'm out of hand by sharing this. But when he joined us on staff at Fort Mill, I couldn't pay him a full-time salary. Matter of fact, he worked full-time as a volunteer for a while, but he supplemented his family's income by starting his own business on eBay, and he was able to take care of his family by having a multiple stream of income. And I know of pastors that there's several different ways, but why would you have a hobby that costs you money? And I'm not against golf, or hunting and other these things, but I know guys that spend thousands of dollars a year on golf or hunting or fishing or cruising and all those nothing wrong with any of that. But they have hobbies that cost them money. And really, if the truth be known, their house is not in order if they die. We can get used to living with the income we've got, but we're not investing it for the future. And so get a part-time job, or better yet, without compromising your calling, be a tent maker. Get a trade, get a hobby that makes you money. Okay? Another thing, do not be afraid to be a fundraiser. Don't be afraid to be a fundraiser. I saw a great example of this with a lady out of our church at Fort Mill named Gina Hams, and she does a great job as a missionary in Tanzania. And I remember when Gina came and talked to me about her budget, she had a budget. And in that budget was her salary. She put money in her budget for hospitalization. She put money in her budget for retirement. And I respected her for that. She didn't come walking in and say, I just want to scrimp by. No, she said, if I am a worthy servant of God, if I'm going to earn my keep, I have no trouble asking people. Part of my budget is taking care of the greatest asset, which is the minister. And in the Church of God, in the Church of God Ministries, there's a great package that is recommended for every church. And every church can't afford it, but that doesn't mean you can't raise it. And you know, there are people out there with the spiritual gift of giving. They give liberally. Romans chapter 12 talks about that. He who gives, give liberally. And he's talking about the gifts of the Spirit. We think about the more spectacular gifts. There's nothing more spectacular than having people in your life, knowing that there's people out there that are looking for opportunities to bless and to give. And so build a budget for your church that includes your full package. And if your church can't afford it, or your church is not even willing to do it, there's people that are. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing immoral about it. The minister is worthy of his hire. And the greatest asset that every church has is an effective leader, is an effective pastor. I know that for a fact. You get the wrong, maybe good person, but you get the wrong person in a church and they'll grow that church down to zero just like that. You get the right person in a church, the money will take care of itself eventually because they will find a way. And let me speak for just a moment to the members. And I don't know where this is going to go. It may be here in the NCR, it may be somewhere else. But there's good Christian men and women out there that you have money, you have means, and God's blessed you, and you have a good heart, and you're looking for places to invest in the kingdom. Or if you haven't really thought about it that way, and you're just haphazardly giving money and you're generous, but it's just a hodgepodge and just whatever, something moves your heart or whatever. Start getting intentional about investing your money. Pay your tithes, support your local church, and make sure that your own pastor's taken care of. And if your church is not able or not willing, sometimes churches just have a small mindset. Well, you invest. One church I pastored, I had a man that put offering for the pastor every week. This was years ago when $40 was $40. And he put $40 if I remember correctly, he put $40 in his tithe envelope as an offering to the pastor to help he was investing in me. And I honor and remember that man to this day. And invest in your pastor, and then look around. Call me. I can give you some recommendations on some sharp men, sharp couples out there that a few dollars a week, a few dollars a month, we can make the difference. Find out, invest in their retirement plan. Help them to buy insurance. Make a car payment for them so they can have a decent car to drive around and represent the kingdom and represent the church. And so, anyway, if you've got the spiritual gift of giving, and you don't have to be a millionaire to have the spiritual gift of giving, you have to have the spiritual gift of giving to be able to give, to be able to give liberally. And it can be on minimum wage. But if God gives you that gift, then you start giving, and then God will give you more, so that you can be a channel of blessing. So anyway, do not be afraid to be a fundraiser. Come up, pastor, back to you, or minister. Have your budget to do the ministry of the church and include your full salary package. And then if the church can't do it, raise funds. Send out a newsletter. Get some donors. I'll be glad to help you with this. But remember, the goal is not to just survive, but the goal is to help your family be able to thrive both now and when you leave. Make the ministry a good experience for your wife and your children. Don't make them have to go scrimp through life. Make the ministry, everybody's not going to understand. And I'm not talking about, some of the horror stories that we see, but let your family thrive, just like any other man, any other woman that in any other business, they want their family to do well. Nothing wrong with you taking care of your own household. Here's another thing. Insurance for for a few pennies a day, you can create an immediate estate to take care of your family if you die. Minimally invest enough, and I recommend term insurance. You get a 20 or better yet a 30-year term. It stays level term. Make sure it's level. 20, 30-year level term, and for a few pennies a day, it'll be an investment. If you have to go get a part-time job just to pay your insurance, do it. Because just like that, you create an estate that will take care of your family so that they not only survive, but they can thrive if God decides to take you home. Before you buy a new car or that new toy, make sure that you have enough insurance. Life insurance, term is very inexpensive. And make sure you have enough. And I'm not an agent, but I'll be glad to talk to you about this. Health insurance. There's a lot of guys that have been talked out of opting out of Social Security. And in theory, what they do is you take the money that you'd have paid to Social Security and put it in another investment. Most guys don't do that. You know that. And not only that, but it adversely affects your hospitalization, Medicare later in life. Now, if that horse has already left the barn, there are ways you can get back in back in Social Security. But young man, young minister, if you're debating that, I would strongly encourage you to do your homework before you do something like that. That technically is supposed to be on moral grounds, that you have moral objections for doing that. It shouldn't be a financial decision if you really want to do it with the fullest integrity anyway. And so make sure, go get a job if you have to have insurance, health insurance, so your family can be taken care of. There's nothing wrong with that. And so make sure you have good health insurance. Then buy a house. And here, let me give you an idea of how to buy a house. Buy a house backwards. Get the amortization. Get a 30-year amortization. I've in the notes, I've given you a link where you can do an amortization of a house. And I just ran the figures. Say for a $200,000 house at 4.5% interest, okay, that will be a payment. You will pay interest on that house of almost $165,000 over the 30 years at 4.5%. But if you break it down the amortization chart and don't pay the interest, but put the principal in savings, like say your 403B plan with the Church of God, the first month it would be $263.37. So you pay the principal now. You may be living in a parsonage. You may be renting. You say, well, I can't afford that. Well, then get a job. Get another job. If you die, you want your family to be taken care of. And put that in savings. And here's the beauty of it. The benefits board, and the most conservative, they call it the trustees fund, the benefits board will pay you 4.5%. And so not only is that principal, you're putting the principal side, but for 30 years, they're going to be paying you interest. And by the time you retire, you'll buy a house with cash and pay it backwards. So buy your house backwards. Start with an amortization chart and pay the principal. The principal will go up every month a little bit, just a little bit. And you just keep paying that principal. Mark it off every month and make a house payment. And anyway, and then of course, take a look at your retirement savings. You're going to die one way or the other. Make provisions for your family. And here's a couple things here. Live significantly. How you say, well, Bishop, how can I save for retirement? Live significantly below your means for all your life and invest the difference. So many guys get caught up. I remember back in the day, pastors were getting a new car all the time. They'd have a closet full of suits. How many suits do you need? You know, this image that they're trying to live up to. And so they were buying new cars. They were spending money on their hobbies and having and this lifestyle that was really way beyond what they could afford. I want to encourage you to live below your means. I'm not saying live poorly, live fully, but you can live fully without having to be unnecessarily lavish. And so live below your means. Make this decision on everything you do. Every week, I'm going to live below my means, and I'm going to invest the difference. And how do you do that? Calculate the true cost of your purchases. Let me give you an example. The stock market, on average, has averaged 10% for 100 years. The stock market always goes down faster than it goes up, but it always goes higher than it goes down. And so if you just ride it out, if you ride the peaks and the dips and all this stuff, on average, all the way back to 1900 or whatever you want to go back, it has averaged 10%. So at 10%, if you just put your money in S&P 500 EFT, or I've given you a couple. I've given you another through Vanguard. It's the ETF VTI, which is they have every stock in the whole market in the United States. And you just mindlessly put a few dollars in there at 10%. Every 7 years it doubles. So that $10 tie, do you really need one more tie? That $10 tie, if you put it in a passive investment in the stock market, in 7 years, it'll be $20. It'll turn into $20. In 14 years, it'll turn into $40. In 21 years, it'll turn into $80. And in 28 years, it'll turn into $160. That's the real cost of that tie. And so if you think about that in every decision you make, if you could save $1, that dollar is going to turn into $2 in 7 years, and $4 in 14 years, and $8 in 21 years, and $16 in 28 years. And so if you begin, and I gave you a resource here. I don't personally use these. I use another broker when I save, but you may have heard it's been in the news a lot. But Robinhood, I gave you the link. You can buy fractional shares. And so you can stand right there and you can say, you're at your discount store and it's on sale. Good gracious, that $50 tie is only $10. And you think, well, do I need that? No, I don't need it, but I was willing to pay it. So I'm going to transfer from my bank, I'm going to transfer $10 into Robinhood, and I'm going to buy, you can buy fractional shares. I'm going to buy a sliver, the ETF, the largest ETF in the world is called SPY, S-P-Y, and it's the S&P 500. All the top 500 companies, you can invest in the top best companies in America. And you can put that $10 immediately. And you just do that every day, every week. You're living below your means. And instead of, well, I saved $10. No, you didn't save $10 until you put it somewhere. We talk about, well, I saved so much money. Well, where's it at? Well, you spend it on something else. And so that's just an idea. Then I've given you some resources. I gave you a great, in your notes, is a great podcast. It's called Rule Breakers Investing. I gave you the link to the benefits board, a little bit of information, and some places where you can start you an IRA. And then I gave you a reading list. So I've talked a lot about this, but I am so tired of pastors feeling like it's okay to be poor. If you have to be poor, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong or immoral with being poor. But you don't have to be. There's nothing spiritual about it. Take care of your family. If you're you're going to die. And if you transition out of ministry and you died, it happens. If you died next week, in the next year, don't leave this world without your family not only being able to survive, but let them be able to thrive. And so bottom line, it is not only okay to make provisions for your family, but it is at the core of your responsibilities as a Christian family man or woman. Therefore, I encourage you to take responsibility for the financial well-being of your family. You are responsible. No one else is. Okay, I could go on, but I've been going for almost 40 minutes, and I'm going to stop right here, and we'll finish this lesson maybe next week on when you transition out. There's some other vital things that I want you to take to really think about as well. But this is enough for today. So, hey, I love you guys. Get out there and grow your church, but grow your own family's well-being as well. God's with you. I love and honor you. Wish you the very best. I'm not fighting against you. I'm fighting for you. I want you to not only survive, I want you to thrive. I don't tell you enough. And I wished I was in the room with you, but let me just tell you, I do love you. I honor you. And I'm praying for you. See you soon. I've got plans to be in your neck of the woods, and I'm looking forward to breaking bread with you. God bless. Let's keep running to win till Jesus comes.